Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Thank you so much for joining us for another segment. In this segment, we're going to be speaking with Mr. Bill Hinshaw. He's president and CEO of Axcella Therapeutics. He's joining us on the program to talk about the initiation of a pioneering Phase 2A clinical trial in long COVID. Welcome to Health Professional Radio, Bill Hinshaw. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Neil. It's great to be with you and your audience today to talk about the exciting work that talented women and men of Axcella are doing.
Well, as president and CEO of Axcella, give us a brief look into your professional background and talk about Axcella's goals.
So I joined Axcella about 3.5 years ago now, after the better part of a quarter century at larger life sciences at important companies like Novartis, where I had the opportunity to lead many businesses on a global and regional level and participate in incredible programs like Gleevec and Kymriah cell therapy. And I was inspired to join Axcella Therapeutics because of the promise underneath it. Many of your audience will be familiar with Flagship Pioneering. They're the founders of Moderna. And at the core of each of the companies that Flagship founds is a big, potentially transformational question. And in the case of Axcella Therapeutics, this had to do with what if we could reset multiple, and that word is critical, biological pathways that are dysregulated in the setting of complex diseases, and do that using endogenous metabolic modulators, or EMMs. And it turns out you can, and we indeed have, and developed important programs in NASH, overt hepatic encephalopathy, and Neil, as you referred to, our very important work that we're doing related to long COVID, muscle fatigue and weakness that we are excited to be running with the University of Oxford right now.
Tell us a little bit about why you decided to pursue long COVID as an indication in the first place.
Absolutely. So in medical fields, progress meets moments, right? And in our case, there were three things that came together. So what Axcella does that's different than most programs that are used to working on single targeted therapies is we use these compositions of amino acids and their derivatives to tackle the complex diseases. And we had studied the impact on biology in multiple pathways, including mitochondrial function. And that was also something that we saw developing in the long COVID area. So our data that we saw in preclinical and clinical setting in long COVID is relevant, and we were ready with a product called 1125 to go to the world's leaders, talk to them about the science, and then develop the study that we've initiated with the University of Oxford to test this hypothesis and hopefully bring an important benefit to these many patients.
So what's the timeline for the trial?
So we initiated the trial at the end of last year, and we expect to report out top-line data the middle of this year. Now, the trial is a Phase 2A, as you referred to, and it is 40 patients looking at an important measure of mitochondrial function as the primary endpoint. And Neil, if I could just take a minute to explain the mitochondrial function and the connection here. In essence, when a virus invades the body, of course, your audience will know that its goal is to replicate and make more of it itself. When it does that, it takes over the mitochondria. It drives to inefficient glycolysis bioenergetics. And that also increases the oxidative stress and inflammation while impairing the immune response and muscle function. So our goal, based on the clinical data we've seen in preclinical on improving fatty acid oxidation, on improving overall mitochondrial ATP generation, on reducing inflammation and improving muscle function, fatigue, is to restore these patients' ability to function and bring them back towards a more healthy state.
What is considered long COVID after you've supposedly recovered or are in the process of recovering and this mitochondrial dysfunction continues causing problems? How long should you be suffering for it to be considered long COVID? And not everyone is going to experience long COVID.
Right. So importantly, we know the numbers are staggering, Neil, right? 300 million, I should say, plus people have been infected by the virus to date. And yet roughly 70 million are anticipated to have long COVID. Now, long COVID is defined by the WHO as greater than 12 weeks post the infection, still experiencing symptoms. Now, the most common of those symptoms, and the one suffered by a majority of patients, is actually fatigue. And that's why we're working very hard to find out if 1125 can indeed restore these patients towards normality, because it's a very large patient population. Now, the estimate is up to 2% of the UK already has long COVID, Neil. And not just the numbers, but the impact on society. The estimate is about half of those patients are not returning to work in a meaningful level, because this is not a light fatigue. This is a very serious fatigue. And there are reports of course, physicians themselves saying their careers have been taken from them by this disease, and athletes are now wheelchair bound. So it's really a critical aspect of public health that is currently not receiving as much attention. You correctly used the term that we're pioneering in this field. We believe we have the opportunity to lead here, understand if we can continue to show this impact on mitochondrial function, and hopefully restore these patients back towards normal living. And that's a core part of the trial design.
You did mention the timeline. Once again, could you let us know when you expect the trial data to be announced?
Yeah, so enrollment is already underway, and we expect the trial to report out the middle of this year.
Okay.
Neil, there's a very clear analogy here that I like to use for how we understand this. So as I mentioned, when the mitochondria is infected, or the cells are infected by the virus, and the mitochondria is oriented towards supporting their goals, it basically damages what is the rechargeable battery of your energy source. So our cells naturally hold a small amount of energy ready to help us function, and then it recharges. That viral infection damages the battery's ability to hold the charge, and our 1125 is designed to help restore that ability.
What are some of the key clinical milestones that you expect for Axcella this year?
It's a very important transformational year for Axcella. We have first, of course, the 1125 long COVID program that we've been talking about, that we have started enrollment. We will announce closure of enrollment, and then we will have the top line data in the middle of this year. We also have two important liver programs underway, one in NASH, which is a very large, up to 40 million Americans, 1 in 10 American children estimated to have NASH at this point in time, disease that has no approved therapies. And we have a phase 2B global trial, the IMPACT trial, that is underway, enrolling well, and we anticipate a interim analysis of 24 weeks of data based on our two previous 12 and 16-week data sets. We're anticipating sharing that in the middle of this year after the long COVID data. And then we have our 1665 program, which is for another important liver disease, overt hepatic encephalopathy. These patients have cirrhosis of the liver. They're neurocognitively impaired, and it can have extreme complications up to coma and death. And that trial, the EMPOWER trial, a global phase 2 trial, is underway, and we'll provide an update on enrollment later this year as well. So a very busy year for Axcella.
Sounds like it. Give us a website where we can learn more about Axcella and the technologies that you're researching there.
Yes, we'd love for you to join us at our important website, axcellatx.com. That is AXCELLATX.com.
Well, I appreciate you joining us here on the program, Bill. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I'm hoping that we'll get some more information beginning or the middle of the year about the progress and the trial results. Thank you.
Thank you and your audience for your attention to this important topic. There are many patients who have needs, and we look forward to helping serve them.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Bill Hinshaw, President and CEO of Axcella Therapeutics. Audio copies of this program are available at hpi.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Listen in, download it, SoundCloud, and be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com, Health Professional Radio.